Again, that's her story, and she'll tell her story. Several interventions and a plane ride later, she demonstrated her determination, resiliency, and resolve, and arrived in this new destination as a single parent and provided me and my 3 siblings with the opportunity to pursue our purpose. So I lived with my grandparents for most of my formative years. I lived with them until I was the age of 10 when I moved here to live with my mother. My grandparents, when I talk about my safe space, it is the space that I call home, right? I'm a US citizen, but there's a place called home. So my grandparents provided me with a solid foundation that has shaped my values, mission, and purpose. I grew up in a very modest home, and when I say modest, I mean modest. It was 2 bedrooms, and sometimes it was shared by 6 or 7 grandchildren, right? Because you all know the grandmother is the matriarch of the family, and the mothers, if they have to travel, they leave the children. So it's 2 bedrooms, and there were 6 or 7 of us in that 2 bedrooms. So my grandmother had an entrepreneur spirit, and there's lots of entrepreneurs in here today, and she had an entrepreneur spirit, and she owned a convenience store in the community. She also worked as a seamstress to augment her income, while my grandfather worked as a farmer on our small farm, and he sold his crops to supplement my grandmother's income. I so learned the value of economics and money and entrepreneurship just based on that. Even though it was modest in terms of what we had, they were the most philanthropic people I have ever met. They were happy to lend a helping hand to those in need, despite our own financial circumstances. There were many days I had to come home from school and there was no lunch, right? And my grandmother was so proud. I couldn't stay at school and watch the other children eat their lunch. She said, you need to come home because I don't want them to think that you're poor. And so with that, my grandparents really still helped others in the community. And so for me, that's where my philanthropic spirit comes from. My grandparents stressed and taught me the value of education, faith, and pride, tempered by humility. They taught me the value of hard work, discipline, perseverance, and resiliency. They were engaged in the political process. That's why I like to have these conversations with Ayanna. I remember one conversation I had with her and I said, "Boy, Ayanna, they're brutal. I could never be a politician." And she said, "Well, my dear, you are. In the corporate setting, you have to deal with politics all the time." And I thought, that is so true. And so I became a little bit more immersed in the political process because I realized that that process impacts everything that you and I do, right? The decisions that's made around the table in Washington, D.C. impacts our table at home. So I digress to say we need to be more involved in the political process, especially in the voting process.